Hello everyone. Today I will be featuring a ship that has been requested repeatedly ever since it came out, especially since I like to play this ship a fair bit on my stream. And those that have seen it on stream know that I think it's a very good ship. Regardless though, in other news, I also made an Instagram since people kept asking for me to make one, so if you guys are interested, I'll provide a link below. A bunch of stuff from wargaming events, like Casting King of the Sea, Wargaming Fest, TwitchCon, meeting people in real life at Berlin, basically a bunch of stuff from travels and just general stuff. If you're interested, follow, if not, whatever. Moving on, Friesland, Tier 9 Pan-European Destroyer. What makes this ship unique? Well, the obvious thing is that it's a DD that does in fact not have torpedoes. So obviously this limits you in various ways. You can be rushed down easier than other DDs. It's normally battleships would be afraid to rush a DD. Battleships will happily rush down a Friesland because you don't really have any way of dealing with them. The concealment is also somewhat iffy. I'm running the full stealth build. As usual, I will show you the full build at the end of the commentary, as I tend to do. I am running the full stealth build, which puts myself at 6.4 kilometers. Now, that's not really that impressive when you consider that the really stealthy DDs reach, what, 5.4, 5.5? So sitting at 6.4 and still being expected to be a gunboat, especially not a fast gunboat. This is not a Mogador, this is not a Tashkent. This is more of a knife-fighting destroyer. You have your Hydra to help you with this, but it can be challenging, because your Hydra is only 5 kilometers of range. So in this case, obviously I've spec'd into RPF to help me close the distance. It's a Noodle. I start closing the distance, but since I don't know, there's 3 people targeting me, priority target tells me, I don't know what else they might have hidden there, I smoke up and I start slowing down. In fact, I'm damage conning just to repair my engine, so I don't glide out of my smoke. I can't barely reach the 5 kilometers I need to close the distance. I start accelerating to close the distance, and at the same time I see he's actually launched preemptive torps. So at this point we have to commit. The Friesland does not stop quickly. It's honestly pretty sluggish when it comes to starting and stopping, so the important thing to keep in mind with this ship is that you have to commit. So in this case, I started going forward, so I have to commit to going forward and turning in. There's no time to stop and so forth. That's something that gets people killed a lot in this thing, is they underestimate just how clumsy this thing can be. Still though, I've left my smoke, and I see they have actually sent an Ibuki into the cap. So I can do some dual purpose work here, namely I can push up and Hydra the Udaloi. I don't want to shoot, because if I shoot I get spotted and I'm going to eat a ton of damage. And I can spot the Ibuki from my team. So at this moment I'm helping spot into B, and at the same time I'm kind of bullying this Udaloi. Normally DDs, even if they're fairly safe, like this guy's behind the island, they feel really uncomfortable if they're being hydraed by something they can't see. So he's obviously terrified out of his mind that I'm gonna pop out somewhere behind a corner or whatever, so he's running away. And that's usually what you tend to do. Most players do this. Oh no, I'm under pressure, I need to get out. The Iowa deletes the Ibuki. In fact, if you look at my spotting damage, I have 47,000 spotting. That was basically the entire health pool of that Ibuki. Pushing up the way I did caught him off guard. He thought he was going to be able to sneak around with his Ibuki stealth inside the camp. No, the spotting got him killed and the firepower from the back got rid of him. Udaloi has backed off. They have a fair bit of support there. I don't in fact know what else support they have, so I just retreat, gain some distance, make sure we secure this cap for my team. 2 cruisers die on my team, so the lead I just gained was lost very quickly. Obviously, once we've secured C, the next thing I want to do is fight over B. I need B for my team, but a lion was seen pushing into that cap, and once again, as I mentioned, this ship is fairly clumsy. It's got a decent turning circle, 620 meters, a good rudder shift of 4 seconds, but it's still not the fastest ship. In fact, it's one of the slowest DDs. It does 37.8 with the speed flag. Now 37.8 with speed flag might sound okay, but then you remember that it doesn't have speed boost. So pretty much all the other DDs are faster. Z46 does 42 with speed boost, Kitakaze does over 40, Yugumo does over 40, Changmu does 43, Tashkent and these guys do like 48 knots. You're the slowest basically. The only one slower is the Jutland. That's the only guy who's slower than you. So you need to be on your toes. And as predicted, as I worried, the Lion was in fact sitting in wait inside the B cap. So it was a good thing we played it safe since he was last seen there, because he popped up right in our face. Now the Tashkent is actually closer to him than I am, and as usual, the Tashkent will be the priority target. Because everyone knows Friesland doesn't have torps, so the Lion is obviously scared of the Tashkent torpedoing him. So he's going to be the priority target, which is why I started opening up, and which is why I now can smoke up and basically just start farming this Lion. Now, DPM-wise, the ship is actually very, very strong. The one strength, I mentioned a lot of weaknesses. I mentioned the concealment, I mentioned the lack of speed, I mentioned the lack of torpedoes, I mentioned the fairly short hydro range. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad ship. No, it's actually got really, really good DPM. In fact, it's got the highest stat DPM in the game. Now, it's not exactly accurate, because Kitakaze, of course, got significantly better HE pen. So, Friesland's with the full gunboat build that I'm running here, the HE DPM is 295. Kitakaze is 242. It sounds like 50k more, but then you gotta remember that if a Kitakaze was spamming right here, he wouldn't have the 44 shatters that I have right now, because he'd be doing so much more damage, because he'd be pinning basically everything except the turrets on this Lion right now. But that's fine, you're a great fire starter, you're the best fire starter of them all, even better than the Kitakaze. So, and if you're targeting the superstructure, as I'm doing here, I'm moving back and forth because the Udalo is trying to smoke fire me, try to pressure me. I think he's might be in a division or a friend of this Lion or whatever. Regardless though, I'm just gonna keep harassing, keep farming him. And you see that damage. You see that those fires being started. And even when he goes undetected, I just keep shooting where he was last seen on the minimap, and he gets frustrated because he's dying. So the Mayoko actually steals my kill a bit, unfortunately, but whatever, we got rid of the ship. We're still behind a bit, but the most important thing in using this smoke to clear out this cap was that now the B cap is free. And now I have the option of pushing into the B cap and trying to secure that for my team. Hydro spots the incoming torpedoes from the Udaloy. He, as soon as the Lion died, he stopped trying to smoke fire me. He didn't want to take that trade. Understandably, since I did trade pretty hard against him earlier, so he's lost a fair chunk of health. We're down. We've lost 5 ships. They've lost 3. 2 of them basically because of the pressure I put in. And we just lost another ship. Never mind. We've lost half our team, and they still have 9 ships remaining. They have the cap advantage, but that doesn't mean the game is over. I'm down to 10k health, I only have 1 consumable left, 1 smoke and 1 hydro, but the Friesland still has a lot of power in it. This is when we need to start playing a lot more for the team and a lot more, basically, as a group. My hydro catches the Udaloy off guard, and this gives me the opening advantage. He has no more smoke, because I know I forced it earlier. I angle away, of course, I've always mentioned this. You want to kite away from ships you're fighting, because it makes it harder for them to hit you. So I managed to secure the Udaloy kill, and I disengage quickly from the Bismarck, so I don't take any additional damage. Down to 7k health. We have still lost 6 ships, they have lost 4. They still have a significant advantage, but there are still ways we can recover from this. We will, hopefully, get the B cap before our Akatsuki dies. They are trying to push in, so at this point, I actually want to push the flank and see if I can maybe get some pressure in on them from the flank. What is somewhat worrying is, though, that my Mayoko appears to have the same idea. Now, whereas I have great stealth, and I can easily push this flank, the Mayoko, not so much. So at this point, I'm a bit worried. Another problem is my Implac. As you see, I ping him to get back. He's kind of overextended. So that's another reason why I want to go down here. I want to slow them down. Because if our carrier dies as well, then we're going to be in serious trouble. Because without a carrier, with the enemy having a carrier to provide them spotting, even if it's not just killing, just spotting, is going to be rough. I'm also pinging my Iowa because he's full HP and he's still sitting at the very back of the map. And we really, really need his firepower and his tankiness on the field, because we've lost so many ships. We're down too much firepower, we're down too much threat. The Mayoko, as I worried, he's actually overextending. Now, the thing is, when you see a teammate overextend, you can't just smoke up and expect him to understand that he needs to use the smoke. No, you have to wait for your teammate to understand that he's under threat and that he needs to disengage. And then when he understands, I told him to get back, and then when he understands that, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, that's when you can smoke them up. Usually I see people trying to smoke up too early. You see, he's finally he realizes, uh-oh, he starts turning away, and this is when I realize, okay, he's finally figured out he's overextending his positioning poorly, and that's when I decide to smoke up. So in this way I can use the smoke to shoot the enemy, and at the same time I'm providing smoke cover for my Mayoko. I laid a smoke right in front of him, so he can quite comfortably navigate into the smoke and disengage from this battle in that way. He was being crossfired by a Georgia Alsace and he had a hipper on him and all sorts of things. He actually pings a thank you, he realizes probably what I did to help him, and because of that smoke he's going to be able to disengage. The dual purpose of this smoke is, of course, it is my last smoke, so I need to get a lot of value out of it, because I only have 3 smokes with this build, so obviously we're going to focus on farming this Georgia as much as possible. I mentioned the HE DPM and the fire starting, as you can see, extremely potent, but the one thing I didn't mention is actually the AP DPM, and that AP DPM is very good on the Friesland. Once this Georgia, especially if it starts giving broadside, you'll get a brief glimpse of it. With the full gunboat build, which I'm running here, the AP DPM is 354k. And that's higher than any other, including Kitakaza. It beats the Kitakaza in actual DPM here. The penetration is also pretty good at, what are we at? We're at about 6 kilometers. At 6 kilometers, the pen on the Friesland is over 100 millimeters. So this means you actually have more pen at these ranges than the USDDs, Z46, Yugoma, Jutland, Kitakaza. You far outpen them. The only ones that beat you are the Mogador and, of course, the Russian DDs, the Tashkents and Udalois. These are the only ones who have better, but obviously they have nowhere near the DPM that you're capable of putting out. Getting some AP in on the Hipper, and then trying to finish the Zara. At this point, I'm just trying to finish ships. First of all, I need to get rid of the threats, so thanks to this push down here, my Implak, who was terribly mispositioned, he's able to run away and disengage. Thanks to my smoke, the Mayoko is also able to disengage. I quickly switched sides and activated priority sector, in case you didn't notice it there, because I saw some fighter planes or rocket planes were on the way of my Mayoko, so I popped defensive AA and used priority sector to shoot them down and discourage them from going for my Mayoko. Once again, I'm trying to keep my teammates alive because I'm really trying to carry this team to a victory. Hydro activated to spot the incoming torps. The Hipper was so close, I expected to see them. Had to adjust my aim a bit to secure the Zara kill. And we're now down to a 5 versus 5. Now we're still down points, but the Hipper is giving me a fair bit of broadside. So once again, we're going to show off some of that AP DPN on this Hipper. And although we can not citadel him, we can still do a fair bit of damage. Rocket planes also add into the damage, and I'm gonna see if I can actually finish off this guy. Because if there was another cruiser, I might be a bit more worried, but Hipper, of course, doesn't really have the highest HE DPM. So my goal here is to try to secure this Hipper. My team is safe now, they managed to disengage, so now we can just open water gunboat a bit and see if we can help our carrier get rid of this Hipper. We still need the points, we're still trying to win. He starts returning fire, which is really worrisome because once again the Friesland isn't actually that hard to hit. It's fairly large and it's not very fast either. I get a fire, he damage cons, so I know a second fire, which I just got there, will be enough to secure that kill. On the minimap I spot the Gajamada opening up, so I instantly switch targets to him. I turn in to close the distance because I want to try to secure both kills at once. At this point I'm a bit greedy, I would love to get a double strike. Unfortunately he gets into cover behind the island just in time. However, on the minimap we see those bombers are going straight for the Gajamada, and I still have 20 seconds of my Hydra left, so I turn in and I go straight towards the island, because I know he's hiding behind the island, and that's exactly where he is. He's trying to smoke up to cover himself from the planes, but because my Hydra is active, I am providing my carrier with vision to get rid of this guy. At the same time, I'm positioning myself so that I can farm these battleships. I'm out of smokes, but that doesn't mean that we can't play this ship just as any other cruiser, positioning behind an island to farm the battleships pushing north. My Hydra spotting provides dividends. The carrier realizes what I'm doing, goes in and bombs to death the Gajamada that I chipped down very low. Now we're just going to stare at the minimap a lot to make sure that we are staying in complete line of sight cover. Note that the Gneiser now use damage con, so as soon as he angles in, we switch to HE. At this point I know any fires I get on him will be permanent fires. So now it's time for that amazing fire starting capacity. High caliber, we are gotten the ship lead after being down significantly this game, and with the help of some smokes and some good positioning, we have now starting to turn this game around. I get one fire on him, aiming for the back of a ship, trying to maybe get a second fire before he turns away, and I do in fact get a second fire. I will no longer be able to get any damage in on him, but with 2 fires he's almost guaranteed to die. There is no way he can disengage from that. And as expected, the fires finish him off, and that's our Kraken unleashed. Alsace Stuck reversing, we're still in a good position. I still have defensive AA active, or ready to use, not active. So if the carrier does come for me, I can deal with him. Another thing I didn't mention about the Friesland is that it's actually by far the best AA destroyer of tier 9. In fact, it's quite an AA monster. And against the tier 8 carrier, your AA is very, very strong, and the carrier will struggle to get any strikes on me. In fact, I can defend myself quite easily against him. I reverse, get into a good position, and now the AP DPM really starts farming his broadside. He has the angle against the Iowa that's pushing in from the north, and because of this, he's presenting a nice flat broadside straight for me. Whereas HE generally, because of fires, can be quite good when you get this kind of broadside. The raw damage, the consistent raw damage that you can put out in the ship is just too strong to underestimate. And you can see, it's constant. It doesn't look like much, but then when you consider how fast my reload is, we're talking about, what, 1.1 second reload? So this damage is coming in every second. And that's when you start realizing, oh, this guy is actually melting quite quickly. He's trying to push up, he does get rid of my Iowa, carrier comes in, but at the same time I'm also moving in sync with him, using the island as cover, and I'm continually farming him, having never actually been spotted during this entire time. And just like that, with the last couple of shells, we finish off the Alsace as well. One note, it might look like I'm about to ground, but if you slow down, your turning circle becomes much tighter. In fact, most ships in the game turn at their tightest at a quarter speed or half speed. So in this case, by slowing down my speed to a quarter speed, I actually managed to avoid the grounding, and I can quite easily get into the cap. Now, at this point, because I was streaming this game, at this point my chat is telling me that this is like, I'm within something like top 25 highest damage or top 30 highest damage in the world in the Friesland, and they said I should just let the Mayoko die. So I can go farm the Shokaku myself. But honestly, that's not really, I don't really like the concept, because, well, he's been a part of helping. Even though I kind of had to bail him out a bit, he kind of killstole also my kill early on the Lion. He's still been a part of this game, and he's still been a part of the team. And honestly, I think if you have to do shenanigans like that to get your damage records, your damage scores, like backstab your own teammates and stuff like that, then honestly I'm not interested. I'm perfectly okay with being like top 20 whatever, as long as I've been trying my best during the game. So instead of letting the Mayoko die in some selfish attempt to break records, we are instead calling him back as fast as we can and closing in on these rocket planes. He can survive one strike, maybe, not two. I close in, pop defensive AA, activate priority sector, and start bursting in as much damage as I can on these rocket planes, hoping to get some big strikes in. He uses fighter plane, and of course we keep piling in as much damage. We turn in as well to stay as close to the planes as possible, to shred them down so he doesn't get a second strike in. Once the planes are dead, note that I turned off AA. Why is it important that I turned off AA? Because it forces my defensive AA consumable on cooldown. Normally defensive AA runs the entire 40 seconds, but if you turn off AA like I did at 20 seconds, it forces it on cooldown. The disadvantage here is, of course, well, your consumable goes off, and we have to wait for it to get ready again. But the advantage is that it's a shorter cooldown until it comes up again. So now, instead of having to wait basically 1 minute 40, I only have to wait 1 minute 20 for this consumable to be up again, because I forced it on cooldown earlier. Once again, he comes in with AP bombers, Mayoko is dodging and weaving, I'm pouring in as much AI I can to mess with his aim. His fighter plane is disappearing. In case you didn't notice, by the way, I pinged the carrier on the minimap and I said requesting backup. And the carrier actually listened to what I pinged, and he gave us a fighter to help out with the planes. I don't think, if you didn't notice it, you can go back a bit. It's a good way of making carrier realize this is a good time to provide some help. You ping him and you request backup. If he's actually semi-decent, he's paying attention, he will probably drop you a fighter, because it's not a big deal for him. And he drops us a fighter in front of us as well, helping us push into this cap. I know, this is crazy. Actual team play. Rocket planes come in, I focus fire. This time with the fighter plane there as well, I don't use my defensive AA. I'm saving it for the one squad we haven't seen yet, and that is the torpedo bombers. They will most likely be on their way for this Mayoko sooner or later, and we do have our defensive AA ready for it. We enter the camp, and thanks to the spotting, we're starting to get some damage in on Shokaku. Only 45 seconds left, so unlikely we'll actually get this Shokaku kill, but at this point it's become a matter of pride to keep this Mayoko guy alive. He's pushing a bit too far ahead of me, which is why I kept pinging him back, because, well, normally, yeah, I want to be the guy who engages the planes first, not the Mayoko, because I have the stealth to surprise ambush the planes, whereas he does not. I'm finally within range, only using the front guns. Note that the turrets are 360 degrees on the Friesland, which are of course very good. The torpedo planes do come in, so this is where we pop defensive AA and focus fire to make sure that those torpedo planes cannot finish off my Mayoko. And the DPM is pretty damn devastating on those planes, and they get shredded as they try to make their approach. And with 3 seconds left, we sadly do not get the Shokaku kill, but we manage to carry this game into a victory. Looking at the scoreboard, 223,000 damage, 1.2 million credits, 16k XP, Confederate, Kraken, High Caliber, 15 plane shutdown, not that much, but all 3 caps secured. We started at the north and then we went down, taking every cap on the way. 12 fires, 6 kills, half the enemy team taken down. So overall, quite a nice game. Team score wise, 3.2k. I had maybe hoped for a bit more, but then again, you can't be too greedy. 3.2k base is still very, very good. The Mayoko that we saved, he ended up with 2.3k base XP, which is absolutely a great result. And the Implac that we helped disengage by basically slowing down his pursuing force, because he had mispositioned a bit, well, he got almost 2k base XP. So it ended up being quite a nice result for the entire team. Detailed report wise, a ridiculous amount of shells fired, of course. 741 hits, 878 HE shells, and 466 AP shells. No Wither, sadly. I didn't get enough fire damage for that, because, well, they gave a lot of broadside, so I shot a lot of AP, obviously. AA's damage, 26,000. Damage upon your spotting, 71k, so that's something that shouldn't be underestimated, how effective the spotting was at the start in dealing with the Ibuki. Potential damage, 1.1 million, a bit more than you would generally want in DD, because you don't want to be open water tanking in this thing, but we kind of ended up having to do it just to secure the win. Anyway, that is the Friesland. That is how the Friesland plays in optimal situations. Let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Alright, as usual, I will start with the modules. Consumable wise, at this point you should be running premium smoke and premium damage con at least. But if you can afford a tier 9 premium DD, you can probably afford all premium consumables. Especially considering this build does not run superintendent, I highly recommend it. Upgrade wise, first of all, main armaments. Keep your turrets alive. You only have 2 of them, losing one is a really big deal because, well, 50% of DPM gone. Even if it's temporary during the fight, you want to keep your turrets alive. Hydro duration, you saw how much value I got out of it. I spotted the Udaloi, I spotted the Gajamada, both of them very, very late. I spotted torpedoes later that might have caught me off guard. Incredibly valuable upgrade. Improve the AA, gives you additional flak on your AA, which is very strong. Acceleration, I mentioned that the turning circle and the rudder shift is quite good, but it's a clumsy thing. Spec for acceleration to alleviate these issues. Concealment, so you can actually play the style that I showed, and of course reload, because, well, what else would you spec? Captain perk wise, priority number 1 is priority target, lets you know how many people are shooting you. For example, when I pushed into the north cap, when I started engaging the Udaloi, 3 people instantly targeted me. That information is very valuable, and that was one of the things that influenced my decision to instantly smoke up. Last stand, followed by survivability expert, your squishy DD, your HP pool is very low. Concealment expert. Follow that up with BFT, faster reload. Once again, guns are your bread and butter, followed by AR for even more gun power, followed by the last 4 points into RPF. The information it provides is very, very important, especially when you're pushing for these knife fights engagements in the early game. So you need to know where the DD is, so you're pushing in the correct direction, because you need to nullify that spotting advantage he has as fast as possible. Flag wise, it's pretty straightforward. You want to run detonation flag, you want to run speed flag, you want to run faster consumable flags. Then you want to run the two fire chance flags to improve your fire chance. AA flag is actually quite nice. I'm surprised I didn't even have it that game. It's a nice little bonus because, as I mentioned, your AA values are quite good and buffing it a bit never hurts. I do run the reduced fire chance. That's honestly because this is I have so many of them and this is press account, so I don't really care. In general, if you're actually farming, you probably don't need this thing, and you can instead just spec for some farm flags instead to just maximize your profits, if it's XP or if it's credits. Overall though, I think the concept of the Friesland works. It's a destroyer without any torpedoes. It's a unique concept, it's a unique idea, and it works. I think it's fun to play, and more importantly, if you're really frustrated with carriers farming the ever-living out of you with rocket planes, the Friesland is the only really DD that can tell the carrier to stop. At least at tier 9. The Kid, I'm not sure how it is with the nerfed AA, but in general, Friesland's AA is unique among DD kind, unique among most ships really. It's a really powerful AA boat. So good against most things, especially good against carriers. Takes a lot of getting used to, but once you master the ship, I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it, especially if you like gunboats. Anyways, that was all for me. If you enjoyed the content, I don't know, like and subscribe. Isn't that what YouTubers usually say? Anyways, have a good one. Good night, everyone.